You got this and you got that, and you gonna murder this one and murder that one. Talking all that bullshit. I'm gonna put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me. I bet you wish you was me, I know that I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast. Well, you know, it's me and my only friends, which includes, but is not limited to,
Woo, baby.
What's poppin', baby? How you feeling today?
I'm feeling good, man. We got a big weekend ahead. We got the Elite Academy. We got the Steelers versus Ravens.
All right.
Me and my boy right here. We're gonna be, watching the game from the graphic streets.
Let me ask you a question. Where the fuck were you yesterday?
Oh, I was out.
What do you mean?
I was out.
What do you? This ship doesn't operate without a tortilla.
Listen, I've decided that I'm gonna try to come up with an excuse every Wednesday not to come, so I don't have to dress up.
Did you just turn the Spanish version of tortoise into Italian?
I don't know.
Tortua.
Tortellini. Tortellini.
Tortellini's delicious.
You go for some right now.
One of the best. People aren't going to like this. We got a lot of sports ball to talk about.
Oh, baby.
Lots of sports ball.
Not gonna like it.
A lot of sports ball to talk today.
They
you know
love
what?
it.
You know, I say people, I mean Nikki.
Yeah, Nikki's not gonna like this.
Nikki and her control group of 10 that like to complain about the sports ball. We have a little bit of poker to talk about. We're going to have a lot of sports ball to talk about with our Survivor picks and what's going on in the Circa Survivor pool, as well as our Weekend Warrior. We're also going to have Andrew Barber call in for the second half of the show. Oh, my ear's itchy. And he's going to give us a little bit of his insight from a mathematical model standpoint, as we've really hit a crossroads as far as what we're figuring it out on the fly. And that's always problematic when 14 million's at risk.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, here we are. To get this thing kicked off, though, we got to talk about this walking, living legend who is just really making some noise over there in the Triton series, which I believe comes to an end tomorrow. The No Limit ended yesterday with this 150K. I don't know if it was a main event or if it was the
Snap Jam.
He got it
event.
in there before we even got a shot of him.
Here we go.
Oh, and he flicks the call in, does Aussie.
Not much.
Too much hand here. Too much hand. Pair and a flush draw.
On his feet. Could
For all of it.
victory be his? Korzanen does have the covering stack. 23 million. Oh, and the club finds the river. Gambledore has emerged victorious as Aussie looks stunned.
Yeah,
Snap
that's going to do it.
He got it in there.
Man,
That's going to do it. So
what a hero.
you guys may have first become familiar with Gambledore when he final tabled the 200K Invitational.
A day earlier.
It was more than that.
A day or two earlier.
It was a few days ago.
Yeah.
He got second place to Patrick Antonius for like, I don't know, 3 million, something like that. And then just goes and rips off the 150K here for 4.3 million, getting through a star-studded field of Sam Greenwood, Chidwick, Bryn Kenny, Dan Smith, Fedor Holtz, all at this final table.
I think he knocked out Greenwood too.
Just mowed him down.
Oh, knocked out
Green-
like three or
they
four
were-
people.
He
at
mowed
the
out
final
Green,
table.
he knocked out Greenwood, Queens versus Ace-5.
They were 1 and 2 in chips.
Who?
Him and Greenwood. And Greenwood
When they
just
played that
decided to
huge
just
pot,
and yeah, so like he like it was like a 10 high board and as like 10 deuce 3, I think, 2 clubs and
Yeah, at Ace-5 of clubs.
he had ace 5 of clubs, yeah. And I think Gambledore bet like 150% pot or something on the flop, and he just ripped.
Yeah.
And Gambledore's like, okay, I go.
Yeah, what can you do? Maybe he has worse clubs.
I mean, yeah, I guess what can you do? But
What do you want him to do? He has Ace-5 of clubs, man.
what do you think, Landon? Is that an ICM mistake?
Equity favorite, Greenwood.
Yeah.
What can you do?
What can you do?
Cool. What can you do?
You want him to fold aces there? You want him to not get in aces there?
I don't know. I'm asking questions. I don't know whether that was an ICM blunder or not, but apparently it was not.
Probably
Pretty
reasonable.
hard for
It's hard to be bad.
it to be bad when
He wins
Sam
his hand. He
Greenwood
wins
does
the
something
tournament.
against Gambledore.
That's true.
Um,
It's Gambledore.
I mean, he didn't
Gambledore.
get it all in pre,
Gambledore.
so that matters.
Yeah.
The lore of Gambledore began when he brought a little person dressed as an elf, as he was introduced.
too good.
He was introduced as Santa for the 200K Invitational. Nobody knows anything about this guy. Nobody knows what his poker background is, where he gets his money from. If he had, I assume he had all of himself. I don't think that's a man who's out selling in the streets.
I don't think so.
He just learned how to play poker 2 months ago.
No,
apparently.
that can't be true.
That's what they.
No
He-
fucking
Word
way.
on the
he has
street
to-
is-
his Hendon mob.
Yeah,
He has
can you bring up his Hendon
no
mob?
history? He
It's
literally has no
insane.
history.
His first cash ever was October 9th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe he's a sick cash grinder, man.
Maybe he's a sick cash grinder.
Like,
yeah.
what do you want him to do? The guy's fucking rich as can be. You know, he hadn't dabbled in the Tritons yet. Where's he going to go gamble?
Look at this. This is amazing. Look at this. October 9th, he plays the 10K mystery bounty at EPT. Gets third. His first cash ever.
Yeah.
Right? 45K. Then he just comes to Triton, gets a cash for 26, and then he gets second for 3.4 million, and then wins the 150K for 4.3. I think,
Legend.
Landon,
His
you brought
picture-
this up.
His picture's pretty great, though.
Yeah. He's got 8 million with no picture.
He's got a sick Hendon mob, man.
Absolute
He doubled
fucking
my
legend.
lifetime earnings in
A day.
2 days.
2 days. Yeah. What
pretty-
I mean,
And they say the dream's dead.
what do we think? Is this guy going to hit the tour?
You'll never see this guy again.
We'll never see him again. You don't think we'll see him in Vegas in the summer?
No shot.
He's not going to play the main event?
No way. This guy's never been to Vegas. I don't know his origins, but if I had to
Nobody
guess,
does. He's a mystery.
if I had to guess, he's like Scandinavian, just living the best fucking life imaginable.
He's going to like cast a spell, poof, and then disappear.
I
We'll
mean,
never
the
see him.
flag he had was Russian.
Really? I wouldn't have made him for a Russian.
Mm.
His nationality is Estonia.
Estonia.
Okay.
There you go.
Estonian.
Yeah, I wouldn't have made him for Estonia. 8 million goes a long way in Estonia. I'm
Goes a
pretty
long way
sure
anywhere.
That's
Yeah,
true.
but it goes a long way in Estonia.
Yeah.
He's looking up those castles Mike McDonald was checking out when Bitcoin was starting to
I
surge.
He
feel-
already owns one of those castles.
So he's probably selling one of them to Mike.
Yeah, he could be the broker.
This guy just came out of nowhere, just played 200Ks, and now is just giga rich. So
I'm
he's
sure
been
he was
giga
already
rich.
giga rich.
Yeah,
I
that's
feel
the
like
thing.
I feel like maybe I'm a little off here, but I doubt that he doubled his net worth in the last 2 days.
I'd
Seems
be with you.
unlikely.
I'd be with you there.
Seems pretty unlikely.
He
But-
might have like added 10%.
Yeah. I'll tell you what.
I think it's closer to adding 10% to double net worth.
I'll tell you what. He's reignited my desire to play. I'm in.
You're in?
Watching this guy just
Stop it.
He made it look so easy, man.
It's so
it's
easy.
true.
Just
I
had to
mean-
hit every river.
Hey, you just sun run a little bit. You know, you hold the queens versus ace 5 suited, like move along,
Mm-hmm.
get everybody out of the way, like be gone.
You want to go to Brazil?
No. No. I said I'll play tournaments. I didn't say I'll travel the goddamn world to go play a fucking 1K.
If Brookie went to Brazil, he
Not
would
bigger.
not be in the casino. He'd be on the beach.
Yeah.
There's some
If I
bigger
go to
events.
Brazil, it's going to be to find a wife, not to go win a tournament.
Oh,
We
then
had this conversation off air. Brazilians are not Latinas.
Uh,
They're Portuguese.
sure. Yeah, they're Portuguese.
You remember this?
Yeah, I remember. What?
Oh, wait, another LSA.
They speak. They speak
Good-
Portuguese.
good
I
one.
don't know if they are actually Portuguese.
You want to do this?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that was a pretty random drop in. I'm not going to lie. We flame his CSAs. That was not.
I'm going to start flaming every LSA there is just because.
I mean, this is going to turn into
You
a
can't
real
even
war
speak a
of
real
words.
sentence coherently.
That's fine. I'm still going to flame them.
God, this is what happens whenever Landon doesn't realize we have a pod.
And by the way, we
wakes
say
up a little
Latinx
grumpy.
around here. Okay, Latinx.
No, this is Trump's
I don't know
America.
what that is.
What?
This is Trump's America.
Oh, we don't say Latinx.
We
Trump's
say, get the fuck out of here.
Oh my God.
It's going to be a bad 4 years.
Yeah.
Guys.
I mean, what would you? Nah, never mind. I'm not gonna even go down that route. So we talked enough politics.
I mean, there's a chance that Biden just falls asleep in the White House and they can't get him out.
Dude. Okay, I will say, did you see the meeting with Biden and Trump?
No.
Biden never looked happier in his entire life. It was very strange. Grinning ear to ear. I'm just like, This motherfucker voted for Trump, didn't he?
Oh, for sure. What are you talking about? You saw his wife like went to the polls dressed all in red.
Yeah.
That wasn't an accident.
yeah.
Come on.
Damn. Cold.
It's a cold world out there.
Wow.
It's a cold, competitive world. I think you know what? I think I'll play that Win Championship in December.
There you go.
He's got me.
Yep.
I'll take $4 million.
Yeah. Slamming the 7 dudes.
How hard could it be?
How hard?
Play some hands, make some hands.
I mean, honestly, I think the not give a fuck attitude can go a long way in a tournament, especially if you sun run a little bit. If you sun run a little bit and you just don't give a fuck, ICM be damned, your tournament life be damned. You're just gonna and you're gonna get a lot of money in the middle, and people are gonna call you with better hands. And then when you just
sometimes you just win.
Yeah, sometimes you just get it in. You have 40% equity, and you just hit a couple of those, and now you just have mounds.
Mounds is
nice.
It's great candy.
Right.
Way
really
better
is.
than Almond Joy.
It really is.
Way.
Right.
No, I'm
'Cause you don't
sorry.
want the nuts.
Almond Joy is the blue wrapper, right?
Yes.
Almond Joys
No, I'll
have
go with Almond
nuts.
Joy.
You
Mounds.
fish.
Yeah.
Mounds is way better.
Mounds is way better.
But-
Mounds better.
Yo, there's one that is called, oh my God, Unnatural or something like that. It's the same thing as a Mounds,
Okay.
but less sugar.
Okay, that's great.
It's
I'm in.
fucking amazing.
What is the difference between Mounds and Almond Joy? It's just the nut?
No.
Yeah.
No.
One's dark chocolate, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Exactly.
Which one's dark chocolate?
Mounds.
Mounds.
You prefer dark chocolate
Of
over
course.
over
It's
milk
not even
chocolate.
close. Not even close.
Really?
Not
I would
even
have pictured
remotely
you for a
close.
milk chocolate kind of guy. I know you like milk.
Yeah.
I know you like chocolate.
Well, sure.
Put them together.
Yeah.
Wait a
What
minute.
do you
Berkey
got?
likes milk? I got all this shit for drinking milk.
It's just a weird choice, man. You know, like the milk ads have gone by the wayside in the 80s. You're 40 something. Like you don't just sit down to a nice glass of milk every day.
Right. Berkey will have milk as like a treat, not as
Oh,
like
I
a
see.
not as like a
I
I'm
just have
having
it in my-
breakfast.
I just have it in my
difference there.
protein
I
shakes.
got you.
They're
Right.
called.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. You add a scoop of protein and call it a protein shake, Guapo. I get no issues with you.
I'm
and
off
your
the
milk.
hook then, huh?
Yeah, you're off the hook. That's fine.
They're
But,
called
like, you know,
Unreal Dark Chocolate Coconut
Okay.
bars.
Yeah.
They're the best fucking things ever.
They're unreal.
Buy me
Yeah,
some.
you guys have to get them.
All right, buy me some.
All right.
Yeah, man.
Do they sell them at Costco? I'll look.
Maybe.
'Cause I'm going there today.
Nice.
Excellent. All right, let's get into a little Survivor talk. We have a special guest joining us, one Andrew Barber, all the way from Yinzerberg. It's Ravens week, baby.
Oh yeah.
You're in the greatest place on earth right now for Ravens week.
You are. That hoodie is a little too close to purple. You better be careful out there.
Uh-huh.
I'm just saying.
I had to put it on because it got cold here finally.
That's fine. That's fine. Just if you go out of your house and into the streets, do not wear anything purple.
You really got to fade the plum,
Right.
You know, and any derivatives thereof. We're not that great with colors over there in Pittsburgh.
I don't know if you have a lot of plum in your wardrobe, Berkey, but I'm pretty short on plum things.
You're
so I think I'm gonna be
plumless?
all right.
I shockingly
plumless.
do. I shockingly do. I look really good in those fall winter colors. You know, I got to get that dark palette.
I don't think I've ever seen you dressed up. I think I'd like to see that.
Wardrobe Wednesday, man. You got to show up on a Wednesday one of these days. You know,
He did. He was here. Remember, he had his nice white T-shirt on.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Best way too.
Dressed to the nines. Did you hear about this Gambledore guy who just that's not his real name, but came out of the woodwork.
His
grew a
name's
beard.
Vladimir Kornizin.
Okay, Vladimir, I could see being Russian.
Kornizin.
Yeah. Came out of the woodwork, just won $7 million in Triton. We're never gonna hear or see from him again.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so funny. It's I think that it's really easy when you have a small sample to discount just how important running good is.
Oh,
And
God.
it sounds like this guy just ran good in all the spots. And I think that it's really easy to subscribe to a narrative like, oh gosh, there's more luck than skill in this game, or like, why am I putting so much time into solvers and studying ICM if this guy's just going to come in and click buttons? But I don't think that's the correct takeaway. But it's cool when you see amateurs, which of course is like the assumption we're making. He might just be in the lab nonstop.
Sure. I will say you can sell me easier on tournaments if you tell me that I don't need to go study a bunch and I could just be like him. He's my Michael Jordan.
This is the beauty of tournaments, right? That people never understand what their true ROI is, and you have a bunch of people who have hope and a prayer, and they don't realize how close they are to drawing stone dead. So
I think if you play Burke, I think if you play the amount of volume that he plays, you can be him.
That's
you just
fair.
have to get lucky, you know.
Just pick a series,
Yeah.
play 6 events, and,
Right.
and
And
you know,
run
really,
like God, and then you're
flex
$8
about
million richer.
Yeah, just flex about how I'm the leaderboard champion.
And just like him, we'll
I
never
like
see
this
you
idea.
again.
That's you're fucking right. You're fucking right. You'll see my exit go so fast. It'll just be like online poker.
Do we really think we're never going to see this guy again? Don't you think he got a little bit of an itch where he won? And
I mean,
you know,
we might see him in Triton.
He was obviously having a good time, right? He brought the elves with him, and he was just loving life. He seemed like it. And now he won. He thinks he can just like win at ease, maybe. So you think just Triton? Do you think that'll expand into? I mean, he did play an EPT. We saw that he cashed for it. But do you think we'll get him to the States?
No shot.
He's never going to come across
No chance.
the ocean, the World Series.
If he does, I'll tell you this much: we got a chair for him over at the Bellagio.
I bet.
I'm sure we could get him right in the mix. Maybe double or triple the stakes. I think there's a chance maybe we see him in the cash streets. Maybe him and Santosh start playing a little bit. Maybe Peter gets in the mix.
That's a cash game I'd like
perpetual
to watch.
stand up. Yeah, it'll be great. While we're on the subject of small samples, I'd like to hear your thoughts, Barber, on. Well, first of all, let me posit this question: if you were in the Survivor pool, what would be like? How would you decide your pick week over week?
So as I told you before I hopped on, like I'm kind of a fish in this area. Like I have very little knowledge. I think I understand how Survivor Pool works, and so this is going to be the launch of my Survivor consulting business.
Okay, great.
You're going to be my first client.
Perfect.
And,
I'm excited for this.
And so I guess the first question is: so you know the remaining teams left? Do you know their previous picks?
Yes.
Okay. So you could like kind of build, like a mental model of how other people are picking across time. Because I think that like an important element here is like, how do I respond to my opponent's strategies? Like, what's my best response?
Right.
And so like, if people have like a lot of chalk, or that like their remaining teams, like I would have spreadsheets on spreadsheets with this shit, just because I think the EV is like getting. What's your EV right now?
So everybody's true not true.
135.
Everybody's average expected value is 135. That's if everything was equal.
Yeah. So I mean, I think there's certainly value in putting in the time and having like. I should start with that question. Do you have a list of everybody's remaining teams?
There's a site that does a lot of the hard work for you. So yeah, I basically there's a site that has a database that we can kind of like query at our own leisure. We can like filter for teams remaining, teams that have been used, and it'll give you a rundown list of a filtered database.
Gotcha. And then I would imagine so you have like an average EV, but I would imagine EV is probably a function of like the teams that you have remaining or the teams your opponents have remaining. Like I would imagine there's probably good lineups and bad lineups.
It's great that you bring that up because that has been the biggest point of discussion. So I'll explain to you basically the general framework of the contest. And then you can give me your thoughts as far as like how the math of all this works. So simply put, it's a 20-week contest. After 20 weeks, it ends no matter how many people remain, right? So if there are people remaining in the pool, it just gets chopped up. If it's down to 1 at week 20 or prior, they win the entire 14 million. The rules are simple. You understand them. You get to pick one team each week. They have to advance in order for you to stay in the pool. And once you use a team, they're eliminated. Now, obviously, all teams are not created equal. But because Carolina and the Raiders exist, you have a team to pick against pretty much every single week. And there's a lot of spots where, a Tampa Bay type of team can be 3-1 favorite against a Carolina or something like that. Now, this is where the strategy aspect of it gets a little bit convoluted because we're poker players and we've been used to using tools for the better part of a decade at this point, and we're pretty accustomed to dealing with EV and understanding how all of that works. the trouble with this that I think is creating a bit of a divide in our group is that there is an EV calculator on this site that we use. Shout out to Survivor Atlas. But the issue is that it doesn't consider anything other than that week, right? So basically, you project the ownership of all of the teams, and then they have the win percentage calculated based off of the money line. From there, it'll tell you how much your expected value is with each pick this week. And the easy thing, or the important thing to understand about the EV is that it's just basically telling you how you will perform compared to the expectation of where you're at currently. So right now, one EV would be the equivalent of 132K or whatever the team is worth, right? So if you pick a team that's 1.2 in EV, then you're doing 20% better than your 134K or whatever the case may be. And the inverse of that is like if you pick a team that's like 0.95, you're doing 5% worse than the expectation of 132K. Now, where I am going to appeal to you now as more of a mathematician than myself is the idea of dependency here seems like a very important one. And what I mean by that is that in theory, in my mind, you could pick a plus EV team every single week for 20 weeks and not necessarily outperform somebody who picked a negative EV team for 19 weeks that ultimately had the highest EV team available to them week 20. Because the true metric here is cumulative EV, because each pick is dependent upon the last as well as in the future.
And every week that EV goes up, right?
Correct.
So it's like getting 20% of EV when there's 2 people left is so much more important than getting 20% when there's 100 left.
Right. So the big disconnect that we're having in our group is the idea of just trying to accumulate EV week over week and seeing it as an independent event where the following week the stakes are just raised, versus seeing it as a single contest that has 20 dependent weeks upon them, where EV now just is basically, the way I view it is it's effectively a tool that can be exchanged, or maybe not a tool, but like a currency that can be exchanged. So when you make a bunch of plus EV picks, like our team might be worth like 150K right now at this very juncture because we made a bunch of plus EV picks leading up to this point. But because we used a bunch of the highest value teams, our cumulative EV might actually be less than 136K. So effectively, we need to spend the delta in order to close the gap moving forward. So like we might want to take a negative EV team this week to ensure that we advance at a much higher rate, as opposed to trying to fade the chalk in order to, advance in maybe a slightly smaller pool. What are your thoughts?
I mean, 2 thoughts. One, I can totally appreciate that you are the person who's going to disagree with others on this, because I feel like there's an obvious parallel to ICM, which like doesn't really take into account future value,
right?
Which I think is like maybe the biggest shortcoming, that and like the not accounting for skill difference.
Yeah.
And this is a bit of a blast from the past, but I don't know if you remember like gigabit block theory, but this used to be something that was like hotly debated on 2+2, but it was this idea that chips like had nonlinear value, and you should be willing to like give up some chips in like a negative EV spot, because if you happen to win that spot, you just crush, you just run over your opponents. This was like especially true in sit goes, like as you near the bubble, like taking the worst of it is fine if the chips they didn't hurt you if you lost them, but if you won them, you were just going to have an easy path. Okay. So I think the consideration of future value is interesting. I saw in that in the screen share there, it looked like there was a projector tool. I wonder if that could, I don't know if you could
that
speak
just
to that a little.
Yeah, so the projector tool is just it just takes the EV calculations and changes it to the pie chart. Okay,
I got you. Yeah, I think if you've like torched some of like the best teams, obviously your cumulative EV, like, or rather your EV is not being captured by just taking the prize pool and splitting it over the remaining teams. I would say I might push back that you have to necessarily take huge risk, because there's a chance that like you're almost kind of forced into a contrarian role, because I would imagine the best teams have some like really good picks remaining. But if like the chalk loses, then it's going to be a bloodbath, and you won't be exposed to that, right?
Yeah, so that's always the idea behind the week over week EV calculation, is that fading high owned teams is just going to get you to advance into a smaller pool. But the counter to that is, in some of these instances, you might be looking at like a 4-1 favorite, sometimes even slightly higher. Like I think the Lions are 86 or 87% to win this week. So the likelihood, and the Lions isn't a great example because they're not going to be that highly owned. But if they were chalk this week, if 60% of the field were on them, the frequency at which they lose is so low that you're taking on a ton of risk by sacrificing maybe like a 20-point delta in win percentage. So like if the next best team is like 67% to win, that's a lot of risk for this very low probability that chalk fades.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, like, I don't know if you should concern yourself with like trying to figure out like a Hail Mary play or Hail Mary slate of teams to try to catch up, when I think the only thing you can really do is maximize your chances week to week. But I do think that like, your point is well taken, that you should be mapping more than a week ahead. And I don't know like how many weeks out you've gone, or if you're just kind of zoomed in on the next week.
We've looked at the remaining schedule and had some models here, but the issue is, so I guess the language here is where I would ask for a little bit of clarity, because there's two conflicting ideas here, right? There's taking the highest EV available team that's going to come with, generally, it's going to come with additional risk if they're not one of the top 10 teams. So what I didn't really understand coming into the season, that's becoming abundantly clear to me now, is that the top 10 teams are always going to be some of, if not the highest EV choices every single week, because their ownership is spread out over 20 weeks. There's never really a time outside of the holidays. So like Thanksgiving, Kansas City will be highly owned. But outside of the holidays, there's never really a time where you see a heavy concentration on any of the top 10 teams. Reason for this is that you also have to use, it's a 20-week contest, so you also have to use the next 10-team tier at some point. And every single week, people are looking for quote-unquote sleepers, where you have a really plus EV matchup between a mid-tier team that is a reasonably high favorite and not going to be oversaturated in ownership. And that's kind of the game that you're playing, is that at some point you're going to use all top 10 teams, or all 10 of the top 10 teams, and at some point you're going to be forced into the middling tier teams. So quite frequently, it's actually the best teams that are the most contrarian picks, but burning those teams kind of affects your end game, because now, like for instance, Week 17, Atlanta plays Carolina and is going to be a heavy, heavy favorite. But it's very probable that the entire pool that remains at that point has Atlanta still rostered and could just take them. So now you're pretty heavily incentivized to fade them and look for a secondary option, which means that now like you're increasingly, now that you are moving off of chalk, you're constantly increasing your risk, because you have to take lower and lower favorites as the contrarian pick.
Yeah, I think it's really complex with it. How many teams are left? Did you say
right now there's
105?
There's 105. And to give you an idea, so this is like where it differs from daily fantasy. In daily fantasy, you have to go contrarian so that you don't have duplicate overlap. Like you don't want to chop the prize pool the times that you win, right? Here though, it's very different, right? We're 11 weeks in, and of the 105 remaining teams, only 8 of them share their path. So 97 teams are unique. And not all of them are equal, right? There, of those 97, there's going to be plenty that have like 7 top 10 teams left. And then there's going to be paths like ours that have like 3 or 2 top teams left.
Yeah, but I think that like it might be valuable to, like, there might not be perfect overlap, but I'd be curious to see like a distribution of ownership of the top teams, and then try to anticipate where those, like, I actually think that the stronger a lineup is, the more easy it's going to be to predict their picks.
Yeah,
and then I think
agree
you
with
could
that.
model. I think you could model like their chance of surviving for 2, 3, 4 more weeks, and then I think that you have to try to figure out what is your best path to surviving a similar number of weeks.
Interesting. Okay, so that kind of gets us to what started this whole debate to begin with. And it was kind of spurned by my notion that because it's a 20-week contest where each pick is dependent upon the last and the next, effectively you're just playing a game of Gambler's Ruin where you're constantly taking on compounding risk. And I think that that's a correct way of looking at it, right? Like,
yeah, I agree.
Your win frequency or your win percentage for the team that you choose each week is now going to be compounded against the win frequency of the team that you pick the following week, right? That's a pretty reasonable way of going about it.
Yeah, you've got a revolver with a bunch of chambers, and your team has more bullets in the gun than your opponents, right? Because you have fewer good teams, so you're going to be like closer to 50-50 propositions.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas you took probably like 80-20s at the beginning.
Right. Some, yeah. Okay, so like with that in mind, if we're able to just like simplify this model very easily and say like one person gets to choose an 80-20 favorite 20 times, and then another person is forced to choose a 60-40 favorite 20 times, the likelihood of player 1 getting to week 20 is significantly higher than the likelihood of player 2. Okay, good. The counter to that, of course, then becomes, well, if you get to choose a favorite that often, then of course you're going to be more saturated, and he's going to be playing in a larger pool of people at the end if he's lucky enough for that to come through. And I agree with that. So obviously it's a blend of these strategies between ownership and win percentage. Now, what kind of like spurred this discussion was, we know we don't have options on Thanksgiving. So what we know is that we're going to be backed into a basic flip spot where either we're going to have to take one of 2 very small dogs that are like 2-point dogs, or we're going to get to take like a Green Bay that's going to be like a 3-point favorite. So in either way, it's going to average out to, we're going to basically be picking a flip. However, those teams are going to be incredibly low owned. So we're going to naturally just print EV that week. And my I guess like theory here is that since we know we're getting a high EV flip that we need to win in order to advance, we should not compound risk these next 2 weeks. It's an opportunity for us to just go chalk, win, like, you know, basically sacrifice a lot of short-term EV for all of the EV that we're going to gain in this flip spot the times that we make it through.
I mean, I guess it seems like you have a few options on Thanksgiving, and so like you're faced with like a rough flip, a couple of different ways. So I think getting to that flip is important, but I don't know if I would deviate too much from chalk to try to buy yourself like a point or something in that.
Yeah,
week.
that's what I'm saying. Like, I want to take the highest win percentage and not care about ownership in order to get to the flip more frequently.
I think that that's right. And I think that Thanksgiving is basically what I was trying to capture when I was saying contrarian, because like you will be in a path that no one else is in.
Right.
And so like you basically get a bunch of EV, but like the EV is conditional upon winning. So like you're just in this like high variance spot where if you get to the other side of it, you have a lot of EV.
And that's,
but like the EV of the flip is actually not higher.
Correct. Yeah. And that's my issue with like always just like looking at the highest EV teams week over week, is that generally it also comes with the highest variance. And that compounding risk, if you look at it as individual contests, you don't care. You're happy to take on the extra risk because it doesn't matter. It's a 1 of 1, and the times that you win it, you're rewarded greatly by the times that chalk loses. And that happened to us week 3 or week 4. One of those weeks, Seattle was a heavy favorite versus the Giants, and the entire pool was on them. There was like 50% of the pool on them. And to be fair, there weren't like a ton of really attractive options. So we went like really high win frequency and burned one of our good teams. We picked Kansas City that week. We advanced, half the pool lost. So that was a spot where like we just made a ton of theoretical dollars. But yeah, I think that changes as you progress through the pool, especially when there are other attractive options that might lead to a divergence in ownership. So like, for instance, this week, Miami is going to be heavily owned. It might be upwards of 50%, but Detroit is also an option. Minnesota is also an option. The Rams are also an option. And these are all going to be double-digit ownerships. So it's like, how much are you actually gaining by necessarily moving off of the favorite here if you know that you're just trying to get to this Thanksgiving week when the pool is going to be shortened a ton and a lot of variance is going to be taken on by everybody.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Like if you had this spread for like Miami versus a couple of the other options you indicated, I wonder how much you should be willing to give up in terms of a point spread to try to be part of a smaller pool. Mm-hmm. Like I wonder if you should give up 3 points for the chance to trim the pool by 50% or something like that.
Right.
Or maybe much more than that.
Yeah, I guess like what I realize the more that we're going through these exercises and stuff like that is that somebody much sharper than me is for sure able to model out these thoughts that I have, and we're just not. Mm-hmm. So we're stuck with this like archaic hammer to nail approach where we have a simple EV calculator which isn't worth all that much, and we're putting a lot of value in it. And the reason why
I think it has value, by the way. Like I think it has value because I think that you have to combine the EV calculator of like particular week-to-week moves. But I think that you need to be going a step further and trying to model the next week and the week after that based on the teams that are remaining. I think this becomes like orders of magnitude easier as you get down to fewer teams and fewer.
Of course it does. Yeah.
Fewer unique lineups.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know if this is like something you've thought about. I would imagine it probably is. But another reason we want to survive to Thanksgiving is you start to have like great hedge opportunities that you don't have yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the pool's still a little bit too big to like really have a good hedge opportunity. And to some degree we'll be forced to de-risk a little bit on Thanksgiving because it is such a volatile spot. But also like with regards to like modeling the future and stuff like that, that's kind of the biggest issue is that it's very difficult to project what the most attractive options will be unless the most attractive option has very low ownership remaining. So for instance, we still have Philadelphia in the chamber, and week 14, they're going to be a massive favorite against Carolina. Only 23 or 24% of the pool remaining still has Philadelphia. So we just know we have a really positive spot there.
If we can get there.
If we get that far, right. But that's rare because a lot of the highest win percentage spots that aren't top 10 teams in the future are also very, very probable to be high owned. So now it's like I have our map from now till the end of the season, and it just has temporary pins in the teams that are going to be the biggest favorites or are probable to be the biggest favorites. And if you look at the ownership of those teams, they're all north of like 60%, which means that each and every time we get to that point, that team ends up being one of the lowest EV teams available to us.
Yeah, I think I didn't follow that last point. So could you say that one more time about how what the top teams are going to be doing?
It's important how we qualify these things, right? So there's the top teams, which are going to be the best teams in the NFL. The Chiefs.
Sorry, I meant the drafting, like the Survivor teams.
Okay, yeah. So
participants.
Right. As far as like
when you said 60%, north of 60%, I'm assuming that's the
pool's ownership
advancing. Okay.
It's just the pool's ownership. Yeah. So like of the remaining 105 teams, 60 of them will have, these teams remaining.
Gotcha.
So like when that collective pool ownership is high, we can also assume that like the pool trends towards chalk, and that now makes these picks very unattractive. It's very conflicting whenever you have these two ideas between fading high ownership and advancing at a higher frequency. And the reason why I'm so conflicted with it is because, like, if we look at the EV week over week, as far as just a general EV calculation goes, and we're accruing like all these theory dollars, right? So we probably made a bunch of theory dollars way greater than the 134 that the team is worth at this point. We never get to over realize that. So at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, and we have our finish to the pool, whether it's chopped or we win it outright or whatever the case may be, the most we can ever win is the entire prize pool, right? But it seems very probable if you treat the 20 weeks as individual events, you can outperform the entire prize pool from an EV standpoint. Right? It's like aces deserving more than a single pot.
Yeah, I guess I don't follow that per se, and
maybe that's not true because there's still betting rounds left.
I think you've already overrealized. Like I think you've already overrealized expectation.
Right, but I think it's at the exchange of under realizing moving forward.
Yeah.
Right, you're like buying and selling EV every single week. That's the way that I view the model moving. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I think that I accept that. And then I think just going forward, I think that you probably have to have a much better understanding of like which teams you would expect to advance going forward based on like their likely picks this week, and then what they would choose next week, and you have to make some assumptions there, and maybe you like throw in some probabilities if you could like grab,
I think you can do this like once
lines.
the pool pairs down to like 20 or less. I think that like people probably start modeling one another and then trying to anticipate.
Yeah.
But what you're really speaking to is getting a more accurate assessment as far as like what the projections will be week over week. Whereas like right now we're kind of just shooting in the dark. Like, I don't know, Miami might be 50%, they might be 30%. That's a pretty big disparity. They're probably very attractive at 30 and not very at 50. So like that becomes a little bit challenging, I guess, to figure out. But I guess the point that I was trying to make about the cumulative EV here is that it doesn't really matter at the end in the end game stage. It doesn't really matter how much EV you've acquired up until that point. It matters what your team is worth from that point moving forward, right?
Right.
So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if you're taking that into account, like how do we squeeze as much EV out of the dollars that are remaining, given that we're already here, since the path doesn't matter. And I would imagine that if you think you're not one of the better teams, which I think you've like kind of admitted to, then I think you benefit from variance where you can find it. And I actually think you benefit from trying to shorten the length of the Survivor, or rather your EV is going to be higher in a shortened schedule than a longer schedule. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a very valid point. I think it becomes troublesome though when maybe not troublesome. Maybe that's not the right word. Yeah, I think that for what it's worth, we are benefiting from it being shorted. There's a high probability it does not go the 20 weeks, or a higher probability than years past at least.
Wait, what week are we in right now?
11.
Oh, there's no fucking way this is getting to 20 weeks. It's zero chance.
I mean, we're way ahead of schedule, but every year past has completed. So it's like the problem is that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's all compounding risk. That's the biggest problem. Is it's so hard to forecast the compounding risk because like there's just a scenario where like Miami loses this week and now you're like now for sure, there's no way we get through 20 weeks. It's just not going to be feasible.
But what are like good weeks for the best teams at this point? Is it? I mean, imagine 80-20s are hard to find. Are we talking like 65-35s?
No. It's like 75 plus. Like you're looking at 3-1 to 4-1.
These are attainable like for multiple weeks in a row at this point.
Yeah, the Raiders play every week, the Panthers play every week, the Titans play every week, New England plays every week. So it's like they're generally going to be somewhere between 2.5 and 3-1 dogs. And then like when you get like a real Titan, like if Kansas City plays Carolina, you're probably looking at like more like a 7-1 dog.
Okay. All right. I could see it. I could probably see it going longer, especially if there is like a great degree of correlation between picks across teams. Like if everyone's choosing the same, like if you said that 60% ownership, if 60% are all choosing the same team, and it's an 80-20 favorite. Yeah, that's gonna extend the season for sure.
Right. And the notion is like, okay, you fade that, and then the times that you get lucky, you win a much larger piece of the pie, which is very true.
Yeah, that's the Seattle story, right?
Yeah. That's very true. I guess my point is that like I don't think you can do that every single week. You can't just do it like week over week where you're always fading the pool. Otherwise, the compounding risk just eventually catches up. But maybe that's the wrong way of looking at it, because like truthfully, the compounding risk always catches up anyway. Even if you have 20-80% favorites, like you just never get to the end. In theory.
Yeah, I think that's the way to think about it. I think it's that you kind of accept the spots that you're in. You accept the fact that maybe you have fewer top teams, or you're going to be facing 60-40s where other people are facing 70-30s or 80-20s. And I think you just try to maximize their...
I do think the notion that like you're able to pinpoint high variance spots, like we know that Thanksgiving and Christmas are going to be at best coin flips for us. And so no matter what, when we win those weeks, we print EV. Because we're going to be taking a very low-owned team in both scenarios that, only win like half the time or a little bit more. And every time we survive those particular milestone weeks, a big chunk of the pool is likely not to. So I feel like when you're able to earmark those specific dates, lowering your variance to get to those dates seems worth something.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it's like it's almost like a bubble that you're approaching,
right?
And you're obviously not going to take a flip, with a shorter stack.
The way I explained it to Landon was, you're in the money, and you know that in one level you're going to flip for all of your chips. Is it worth it to try to get to that flip spot with the chip lead, with second in chips, knowing that you're going to face the chip leader, or is it worth it just to mitigate your spots and get there with whatever you get there with?
Yeah, no, I think that works. Yeah, you don't need to expose yourself to risk to collect chips when you know you're going to be flipping regardless.
Yeah, I guess the bad part about that example is obviously the times that you win the flip, when you're second in chips versus the chip leader, you just like win the tournament more often. Mm-hmm. Whereas in this instance, that's not the case. You don't like there's no actual accumulation of chips here. I guess there's like an accumulation of EV where it's like maybe we're in a slightly smaller pool on average if we take on additional risk between now and Thanksgiving. But yeah, I really don't know. It's such a mindfuck to me, and I'm so open to all of the different scenarios. But guys that like I thought were sharp have made a lot of picks along the way that made me think like, oh, maybe they're not that sharp. But then I came full circle around to the idea of like, well, this is our second time doing this. For some of us, it's our first. These guys have been doing this for a long time. Maybe I have a blind spot. And I think that's like what made me just want to like push back really, really hard at just the week over week EV model. Because it doesn't seem like it just doesn't seem like it's true EV, right? Like, if I'm making a pick this week that is earning me 20%, but it isn't forecasting at all for the future, I could just be burning EV week over week over week over week moving forward based off of the pick that I made this specific week and the path that it set me down.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like theoretically this is interesting, but I think that for your like ideas to be fully relevant here, you need to have like a stone lock at some future week
Mm-hmm.
That you can be guaranteed to have in your pocket if you get there.
Oh
that
baby,
nobody
we
else
got
has.
it. We got it. It's not that nobody else has it, but it's a low ownership. Philly week 14, very very small portion of the pool will have them.
Yeah, but like if you knew that you had a week or two where you was 100-0,
Right,
where you
right.
you just auto walk through, then I think you should be willing to do some interesting things to get to that spot, because this is like the situation we're talking about, or I guess maybe the underlying theme here, which is we want to have an opportunity to play for all of the EV when it exists and not worry about like the small incremental changes to our EV in the weeks leading up to it.
Yeah. I think that's a good way of framing it. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's been eating at me, because the thing is that when you bust, you're always going to have regret, right? It's like busting a tournament, and you're going to replay.
I could afford that ace king.
Yeah, you're going to replay every single hand that led to the point of busting. And honestly, like it is very similar to a tournament in nature, right? Like tournaments are also compounding risk.
Yeah.
Well, it's also compounding risk. Like the chips that you're winning, which is actually maybe a very interesting way of framing it, right? Like at some point you switch from playing a chip EV strategy to an ICM strategy, right? So hands that are clearly making money in one framework are clearly losing money in another. And I think that's what I'm trying to convey or articulate in these examples that I'm giving, where I say like we could be making a very high EV decision this week, but cumulatively it harms our overall EV, right? Because like we're just looking at it through only the chip EV model.
It's like your chips are worth less as the tournament goes on, right?
Yeah.
But you being in the tournament
is
and
worth
your stack
more.
Itself is worth more.
Right.
Right.
Right. Now, I don't know what the perfect parallel is here in Survivor, but like that feels...
that feels right.
It feels like an important notion to me.
Here's a thought experiment for you. If every remaining participant in the Survivor pool had the exact same lineup of teams, should everyone pick the exact same for the remaining weeks?
No, of course not.
So I actually think you could make the argument that no one should deviate, because any deviation from the optimal pick is going to be bad. They're sacrificing EV for the chance of YOLOing it.
No, I don't think that's true. Because if everybody picked if everybody locked into the biggest favorite that week, the EV would probably be 0, right? They would just be they'd be playing to chop the pool.
There's no change in EV. You're right. They're playing to chop, and I actually think that that's the best outcome when everybody has the same teams remaining.
I don't think so.
Like, I think
it's a prisoner dilemma. I think that's one equilibrium, right? If everybody cooperates, then that is one equilibrium, and it's probably the highest equilibrium on average. But there's a secondary equilibrium where one person defects and just gets to win the whole prize pool.
When they outperform them, right?
Yes. Yeah. They have to outperform. Yeah.
And
so
I
it
guess
happens
would be
infrequently.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think their variance just goes through the roof, but I wonder if it's necessarily positive EV, because my assumption is it would probably be like any defection is probably going to be negative EV.
So it's funny because like I'm now arguing for the side I've been arguing against, and you're arguing for my side. And it's interesting because like the way that your mind is working now is a lot of what I'm saying, I think, about the cumulative EV score compared to the week over week EV score. I don't think the correlation between the two of them are as great as one might believe.
I don't think you want to play GTO. I think you want to fucking go for it. That's what I think this is about.
Oh, me personally?
Yeah.
No, it's the opposite. I'm trying to play conservative right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to entice people to like be on chalk, because I think getting to Thanksgiving is really critical.
I completely agree, and I actually think that the more that I think about it, the more the EV that we're talking, and like maybe the expected number of teams remaining if you get through Thanksgiving. I just think both the hedge that would be available on Thanksgiving for your for the teams that you're not going with, or whatever hedges that could be presented there, plus the times that you were like are now possibly going to chop. Like, I don't know what that critical number is. It probably matters like the composition of the remaining pool, but there's some number that when you cross, like, I'm sure it's going to be a serious discussion. And I think getting to that spot is so important.
Yeah.
So if you took a this week, you had to take a or you took a plus EV team, it was going to be 10% plus EV, but in turn meant next week that you would have to take a negative 10% EV team, or you could do it reverse.
Right.
You'd always want to take the negative EV team first, right?
Personally, yes.
But because your stack, your entry is worth more, so 10% of what it's going to be worth next week is greater than 10% of what it's going to be worth this week.
That's the way I view it. But
Right.
But I think there's some complications here.
Go ahead.
One is that
There always are.
every team is like an injury away from the line changing.
Yeah, that's true too. That's true too.
So there's that. And
But
then
that's
there's
like the
fact that,
unknown.
like,
You can't model out the unknown, can you? Or can you?
I mean, we could probably look at like history of lines and you know, where's there
like
been
Dak
more than a
Prescott
3 point-
going
3
down
point
changes
shift.
a lot, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, a franchise quarterback is done for the year,
Right.
something like that. So like that, yes, that's low percentage. But then there's also the chance that like games you're not involved in that every other team has exposure to are, you know, some freakish outlier occurrence happens and you just now are part of a smaller pool. So now surviving actually gave you immediate EV as opposed to like the theoretical EV that you would get from going negative EV in week 11 or 12 and then going positive in the following week.
But it's the opposite.
Going negative,
Picking the negative EV often leads to greater survivorship.
right. So the negative EV doesn't mean a lesser chance of a team to win. It just probably means a lot of times it means that team's going to be owned a lot, which means they are a better chance to win.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. So that we didn't really
yeah.
explain that. Right? Yeah. Picking a negative EV team doesn't
Right.
necessarily mean
Often
that.
what it
Right.
means is that you'll be a part of a larger pool when you do advance.
And your win
Right.
percentage is high.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
This is a mindfuck, man.
You're more
Right,
likely to
yeah.
move on, but there's more people that move on with you
Right.
when you take the negative EV team.
It's really hard to prioritize because if it weren't a 20-week thing, I think we could kind of better understand when to go contrarian versus not. But because it's a finite thing, you really are trying to play for the biggest chunk of the pool as possible, and I think that's what keeps bringing us back to wanting to be contrarian as often as possible, because there's a greater likelihood that you just win the 14 million.
Well, being contrarian doesn't also mean minus EV. Being
contrarian always means plus EV. In terms of like what we're making for that particular
It's like if we were
week.
on Philly last week and they were only owned by 5% of the field,
Right.
and then
Right.
or 5 teams or whatever it was. It was like I think it was 5 teams, something crazy like that. And then the Chargers lose and all the chalk loses, and now you're left with like 15 people.
Yeah, you're a part of a very small percentage,
Right.
or very small pool. But
What
the
a
thing is,
huge EV spot to be in.
yes, but that the frequency at which that happens is very low,
Right,
which
right.
is why you're only making 20%.
The math almost compensates itself,
the,
right?
The argument would be that the model accounts for that low percentage.
Right.
And that's what makes it what it is.
That's what I just said. That's why you're only making 20% EV instead of like 300%,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Matt,
and that's
are you conflating EV and win percentage?
no. Win percentage is the frequency that you move on. The EV is heavily influenced by the win percentage.
Win percentage and ownership.
Correct.
So for those two together, you get your EV.
Correct. Yeah. So like most plus EV teams are going to be moderate win percentage, low ownership. There are outliers scenarios though, because people again save their best teams where you have a very high win percentage team and a low ownership. So that would be like Detroit this week. Detroit's going to be like an 8-1 favorite.
It'll be a massive.
And they might only be single digit owned.
Yeah. And you can never know what your true EV is because you don't know. You don't know what the ownership is going to be until all the picks
You
are
have to
in.
project
So we
ownership.
thought that the Chargers last week were going to be, maybe 20% owned. They ended up being 40% owned, which kind of screwed us in our EV calc.
Yeah. I mean, I'll take blame for that.
didn't
I don't think it was a we thing. It was a me thing.
Okay, but
but yeah,
as a collective,
The
I'm
moves
saying
should be more predictable though as you go on. Like you should be able to predict what teams are going to be doing or what participants are going to be doing.
I mean, that's what I tried to do. And hive mind is a real thing that I just didn't give enough credit to.
I think you have to be able to predict where the bulk of the ownership goes. And when you put it in the solve, it'll tell you the ownership plus that win percentage and give you the EV number. And then you have to think to yourself, okay, is this number one pick going to be higher or lower owned by the pool based off the prediction? And then you go from there. Like, this is bringing me back to the opposing view of yours, where week over week making a plus pick entry choice makes the most sense.
It makes sense in the sense that the times that EV is realized, you were in a smaller pool. Yes. However, your options available to you as you continually get into a smaller pool will often reduce the times that you win money out of that pool.
Right. Don't you want to take the plus EV spot when your pick is worth $1 million as opposed to when it's worth 100,000?
I think you will still get a plus EV spot when your pick is worth $1 million.
You have to sacrifice somewhere, though, right? If you're always taking the plus EV spot, then you're going to be left with less.
Well, you can always have plus EV spots depending on how things go.
Right, of course. And I think that this is the issue is that...
But maybe not.
Is that like, say you get to, week 17 and the pool is very small, smaller than it would have been had you taken like more chalky plays or whatever the case may be. But now you have no real good teams left. So you have to take you have to take flip spots, basically. You get the hedge, which is great because there's a small pool. However, now you're only realizing half of that EV. You're always realizing it, which is great. Now it's actually found money and realized EV, but you've fractionalized your edge at this point because you've compromised your ability to have a better option.
That's if you decide to hedge.
Yeah, I mean, you can YOLO it, but now you have unrealized gains because half the time you just lose.
Correct.
Right.
And I guess it's just a matter of
strategy. I think in the optimal strategy in this has to you have to have an estimate for the number of weeks that you're going to participate in the contest, or the contest is going to go on. And then I think you work backwards from that. And so I think you can't simply look at it week to week. I think that you have to basically have a computer crawl through all of the potential matchups. And I think you're going to need to find, I guess basically this is a long-winded saying that you can't just look at a week to week, make week to week decisions, because I think there's so much. I think your point was well stated that when you get to week 17, and you can imagine a toy game where maybe there's only two teams remaining or two participants remaining, and you have the worst team and they have the best team, and it's 80-20 or something like that. You're going to have so much less EV there than if you had accounted for that several weeks prior.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not exactly that simple, because the alternative would be that you both have that 80-20 spot, and now you're just chopping the prize pool. And in that particular toy game, you could chop the prize pool anyway, just through hedging. But I think your general sentiment is well understood. If there were 4 teams instead of 2, now that simple complication of it being multi-way doesn't allow you to hedge to where you can get more than your fair share, which is a quarter of the prize pool, or maybe even less. I'm not going to do math on air. I'm not crazy enough to keep doing that. But yeah, I mean, there's no way to get around the dependency of week over week. And I do think that the people who are sharpest at this are probably modeling from week 20 back, because you do know that it's a finite number of weeks, and you're able to just I would imagine that the most ideal model here is able to accurately project lines many weeks in advance, and then continually updates them week over week in order to see how that adjusts. Accurately able to project what those lines will do to ownership week over week, and again, you're just constantly updating the model every single week, and then just kind of highlighting the milestone weeks where you're just earning everything. right? Either because you're forced into a flip spot or because you're going to have a low-owned monster favorite. You know, we just made a lot of money with Kansas City week 4, week 5 when Seattle lost. We'll make a lot of money on Thanksgiving should we get through by taking like a low-owned Dallas or, Green Bay or whatever. Same thing on Christmas. Like we might be forced to take the Steelers as a dog. When we get through, we'll make a lot of money in those spots. Those are all the milestones that are like easy to just like highlight, stick a flag on, and know that these will be situations where money is made. So how much do I need to make money in the interim?
Yeah, I think for what it's worth, though, like this idea of being forced to do a flip spot, I think that's what the backward induction modeling from week 20 backwards would prevent. Like I don't think you would ever. I think with like perfect modeling, I don't think you're ever facing a flip spot. So I think the flip spot you're in because of decisions that were made along the way.
Yeah.
And I think anytime you're in a flip spot, it's like evidence that you're kind of taking the worst of it.
Well, some of it's a byproduct of the slate.
A silver lining on it. I think you're putting a silver lining on the fact that when we win this, it's awesome.
Yeah, maybe. But some of it's a byproduct of the slate itself. Like Christmas has no huge favorite. Kansas City's the biggest favorite, but they'll probably be like 4.5.
It might not even be a favorite by then.
Right.
I mean, you never know.
It could continue to move. So, like, basically anybody who makes it to Christmas, if the contest lasts that long, won't have big edge on any team that they pick, and now ownership will be everything. Whoever finds the lowest owned team.
Maybe that's a crucial input to the model. Is what is done in those weeks.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And then like Thanksgiving is another good example where there were two clear massive favorites, Kansas City and Dallas, over the Giants, but Dak gets hurt. So now it's only Kansas City, which for everybody who'd saved Dallas like us is forced to pivot.
Looking at the Giants.
Relax, buddy. That's so dumb.
It is interesting because at least I'm trying to play around with the idea of like, let's pretend that there's 4 teams left in the pool right now, right?
Right.
By default, if everybody picks a different choice, like everyone has a favorite, it's 25% ownership for each team.
Yeah.
You know? So when that happens, like the highest favorite becomes
the highest EV.
The highest EV.
Yeah, of course.
But it's still kind of close everywhere else.
Yeah. Well, that's because the win percentages are probably close. It'll strictly come down to win percentage if 4 people have 4 different teams. The EV will be distributed absolutely 1-to-1 according to win percentage.
Right. But now let's say that two of those 4 teams pick the same one. Like they both have access to the heavy favorite.
Right.
Will that mean that the other pick?
The second favorite will probably become whatever the next individual win percentage is, like whatever the next highest win percentage is, will become a heavy EV favorite.
Right.
And the 2 that took the highest win percentage probably become a losing pick.
Right. I'm kind of playing with it a little bit as we speak.
Yeah, I mean, these toy games are important. I think that they help demonstrate how models work and also like where they're fallible. And that, like, there's ways to break this EV model where it becomes kind of clear that like it's not the best guiding. Like we can make the Raiders on Thanksgiving worth like 4x. They're worth like 3 or 4 in EV if you pick them.
Oh, wow, interesting.
But they only win like 20% of the time.
Right.
Well, because like I guess for this example, if there's 4 teams left this week, 2 people took Detroit, 1 took Miami, 1 took San Francisco. Those are the highest favorite. Oh, Houston's on there, but whatever. Detroit, with 2 out of the 4 teams being owned, is still the highest EV at 1.04.
Oh, that is interesting.
Right.
Hey, Matt, I have a question. So I think I misunderstood the EV model. So the EV is just basically saying, like, what is the function of this choice, but not necessarily how this choice is impacting your share of the prize pool. Is that correct?
No, it's accounting for the prize pool. So it's basically like when the best case scenario happens, how much money do you make? So it's the win percentage and the ownership compared to the win percentage and ownership of all the other options.
But you said you chose like if you would choose Raiders and they're a huge dog, you have like a massive EV.
Right. So
do you have to multiply EV times win probability, or is that already taken into account?
It's already taken into
It's taken
account.
into-
Yeah, just imagine if you have the Raiders and
Because when the Raiders win,
right, literally nobody's going to take the Raiders versus the Chiefs. Now, when they win somehow and everybody else loses, you just win the whole thing right there. That way.
Oh, because everyone has
the Chiefs. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
everyone,
Okay.
well,
All right, I
okay,
got
so
you.
the way that I did the model was 33, 33, 33 on all of the favorites for Thanksgiving, and then 1% being one pick, being the Raiders. And the Raiders are worth 3.5 times the value because the parlay of Raiders win means that the Chiefs lose, and a lot of people are on them. Plus the value of the favorites losing on Thanksgiving means that it's all over.
Yeah, basically it's like bare minimum, a third of the pool is eliminated, and on average, it's probably closer to like 40% of the pool is eliminated.
Yeah, and then on a good day, maybe 70 to 80%.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like Landon's making like the tempting argument that you should just choose dogs.
Well, at some point,
but that's why the model is clearly broken.
Right.
Right. Because
No,
I made
the model's not broken. It's just the interpretation of the model that's broken.
correct. That's absolutely right.
Okay, so
how we're interpreting it is obviously incorrect
So-
because there's a way that you could. I basically made this argument that if we look back on the past 10 weeks, there is almost certainly a single team each week that was a plus EV pick that was not chosen, that had zero ownership.
Sure.
And my statement is like, it would obviously not be a good strategy to go back in hindsight and choose those 10 teams. Like, I don't think that would necessarily be the most optimal strategy, even if we had the power to, be able to do this retroactively.
I mean, I'm actually kind of like obsessed with this topic now, and now I want to like go back to it.
yeah, right.
well, Andrew, hold on. Let me preface this with like the Vegas or the Raiders like test is if you give 1% to some of the other dogs as well, like Green Bay versus Miami it's Green Bay -3. So like some people are going to be on Miami, some people might take the Bears at +4, but as soon as you start diversifying the ownership, choosing the Raiders becomes awful.
Right. That wasn't the point of this. The point was saying that you can choose, or you can show, quote unquote, how the model can break. Right. And break is not the right word because obviously the Raiders would be worth a lot in that scenario.
Well, you can justify choices based off how you project the model to be.
Well, it's the interpretation. 3xing your so making a pick that's worth 450,000 on its face. In a scenario where you're playing for 14 million and you only get to realize that 450K a very, very, very small fraction of the time isn't necessarily better than just advancing through that week and then getting to make decisions week over week over week over week over week that accumulate to way more than 450K.
Exactly. Right. Now all of a sudden, when you just have a 1x or 2x, that's worth 450K if you can just get there.
I guess what
that's my whole thing.
I'm alluding to is in the instance we know for sure how everybody picks on Thanksgiving, we should take the Raiders. But we know
only, in my opinion, only if the contest ended the next week.
The model would disagree with that.
The model doesn't care about the following week. In the model, it ends every single time after you make that pick. It's just trying to get you to capture the largest chunk of the prize pool when the contest ends. And according to the model, the contest ends the second that you move on. It does not have any conditional aspect to it. It's no dependency in the model. It doesn't care about last week. It doesn't care about next week. It's trying to get you to maximize your chunk of the prize pool
right now,
this particular week.
Yeah.
And that's it. So taking a team that wins 15% of the time in order to maximize your dollars on Thanksgiving when you still have to play 8 weeks thereafter seems like unnecessary risk. You could just make that EV over the next 8 weeks.
Yeah. I'm with you on that.
That's the argument for potentially choosing the Chargers last week being a fine pick.
I don't think it was necessarily a fine pick, but more so the Bengals the week prior. Yeah. Like, there are times to take chalk. It should be abundantly clear that there are times to take chalk. And if it's not, then like I feel like we're just missing something.
Right.
But I don't know.
I think this exercise shows how difficult it is to kind of forecast like several steps ahead,
Mhm.
because I think that like the Raiders example is really tempting, but I find the argument convincing that like you're torching EV because it's going to set you up so poorly for like the subsequent weeks.
It's not that it sets you up poorly; it's that you don't get to the subsequent weeks ever.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
You're absent. Like you're at home crying while they're chopping up your money.
Right. Like you chose to take a team that you know wins like fucking 2 in 10 times, and just willingly sitting it out for the other 80% of the time in order to say like I did right by the calculator. And it's like, well, that's crazy. Like, I mean, I guess like
it seems analogous to like wanting like a whale consciously taking the worst of it because of like, I don't know, like fuck you equity, or I don't care, or it's going to feel so good to get there.
Yeah, precisely.
Like,
I just want my dollars now instead of patiently collecting them over 10 weeks.
And you can't have them now.
Right, and we can't even have them now. That's the crazy part.
Right.
Like,
if you could have them now, then maybe you take a chance. Like that. If there's a cash out button,
it's not even that.
Right.
Think about it this way: you perform the same as somebody who picked like Green Bay, somebody who picked but somebody who didn't take on all that exorbitant risk. Right, because
just
like,
by advancing.
Right, because you only actually maximize. You don't maximize the Raiders spot by the Raiders winning. That allows you to accumulate some of that 450,000 in EV. You maximize the spot by the Raiders winning, and then every other favorite losing.
Right. If you would have just taken a different favorite or taken a different team, and then the favorite wins. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Barber. I could talk about this forever, but I have a game to go play at the Bellagio, so I hate to cut this short.
I want in next year. I want in, and I'm gonna be chief modeler.
Hey, there's great news. There's still time to get in now. We're always looking to de-risk, big guy.
All right, let's talk after. Let me know how much a piece costs of your terrible team that you have.
I can't wait. All right, we'll chat later. All right.
Love exit liquidity.
On that note, I'm personally going to get out of here. Conrad's going to run you through the weekend Warriors, and then we're going to wrap this up.
Sounds great. Bert, good luck.
You got it?
Sounds like a party.
Okay,
yep.
Cool.
See you,
Thank
Bert.
you, Barber. See you.
Thanks, Barber.
Later, Barber. You know what that means, Guap, right?
Yes, sir.
It's time. Let's go! All right. So, Hanks was the only person that won money last week.
He won money?
I won last week.
But they bet like 50, 20. He bet to win like $9.
I lose every week.
He put a teaser in. He won 50 to win 150. He got it. He got it. Hanks is back in the game. He's back in the game. He got a bonus.
Tantalizing teaser.
His tantalizing teaser. He got a little bonus. Brian, why don't you walk us through what you had last week and what you got this week?
What the hell did I have last week?
You don't remember. Just give,
Doesn't matter. Let's just talk about
this
week. This week we're going hard in the paint. We got a 6-team teaser.
All
Not
right.
teaser. I'm sorry. Parlay. Same game parlay. We got the Steelers, obviously, +3. And then I took under 48 lower 48 because obviously it's the Steelers versus the Ravens, and that game is always lower. Just comes in every year.
Every year.
Not probably this year, but we'll see. And then I also took Pat Freiermuth. The Muth is going to get loose for about 25 yards.
Okay.
And then I took higher Zay Flowers, 50 yards receiving. I also took higher George Pickens, 60 yards receiving. And is that it?
Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson. Higher than 200 yards passing.
Gonna
get it done. I think we're gonna throw the ball a lot on them, and
this is a very correlated parlay.
Is it correlated?
I mean, it's good. Like you have people with receiving getting higher.
Right, I do. Yes.
Russell having a high
but it has
passing
to throw
game.
to the right people.
Well, Brian, you need to hit this because right now you are second to last.
I know it's
you
getting
are
scary.
Second to last with $649.
Right, but when I hit this one for 1,100. We'll be cooking.
Then you'll be in third because right now
Third's fine.
Right now I'm first with 5,400, 54.55.
Connie.
Burke's right behind me, 32.24. Guapo, 13.08, $9 at a time. Platt has 12.55. He's on a losing streak. He's going down right now. He's not feeling it. It's just every single bet he puts in this week. It's just he's putting it for more money and he just keeps losing. Landon, He's back with the Dolphins.
I'm back on my fins, baby.
He-
Tua's alive.
He's got
Tua's back,
862.
so are you.
He's chilling. He's chilling.
Tua's alive for now.
It's just Hunt, Brian, and Hanks just hanging around the 600s. So like we're you guys are fighting for a penalty right now.
Scary.
You're fighting for a penalty. Landon,
Comeback of the century by Hanksy here.
what are you doing this week?
I have another same game parlay. Well, not another, but this is my $50 to win $450 on Dolphins -7 against the Raiders. Dolphins are at home. Raiders are pretty stinky. So I got Tyreek higher than 70. I got Tua 1+ passing touchdown. Tyreek anytime TD scorer. Devon A-Chain anytime TD scorer. And then higher 225 passing yards.
So,
I think.
okay.
So let me ask you a question. Are you just hedging about for your feelings? Like you want the Dolphins really to lose for the Circa, but you want them, if they happen to win, you might win your parlay here?
It depends who we take. We might take Miami this week.
I mean,
It depends on who's busy yapping for their side of the algorithm.
Oh, don't worry. They'll all be busy yapping. Just
Well, the
matter who
best part
wins.
about it is Matt's going to trust his heart, So when the man trusts his heart, he thinks that the ticket is in for him. He might just say, because he is the equity owner, like major shareholder.
Right, he is, yes.
So the major shareholder will do what he does.
Majority
and-
shareholder gets the final say.
It's true.
Right. So I think if I know that guy, he'll find a way to take Miami this week. So if he's taking the Fins and I'm on the Fins, we go with our
We
Fins.
ball hard with the Fins.
For
Yeah,
sure, for
so-
sure.
We don't know if Tua's going to make it out of this week alive. So you got to take the Fins and you can get them. You can't expect Tua to stay on a week over.
Guapo, what are you working with this week?
I, like Landon, am also doing an emotional hedge. I'm betting against 3 people who I actually want to win. So
Okay.
I'm betting against Mike Tyson, I'm betting against Michael Chandler, and I'm betting against Paul Craig.
Wow.
At, what'd you say, at $9 at a time? Is that what you said?
$9 at a time. That's what you won last
It's a
week.
3-leg
what is
parlay
that
to win
wager up there say?
$8? What the hell is
What
happening
does that
here?
wager say?
You're,
It says $50, right? To win how much?
8?
50 to win 58, which means
Yeah.
you're getting plus money on your pick. So your
Wow.
Guapo is going to
Look
make
at that.
$58.52 if he wins.
wow, he needs 7 people to win.
The real edge he's getting here is that it rounds
numbers
up
are hard.
when it comes to cents. So Guapo's going to get an extra bump up of 48 cents.
Oh, God, it was so fucking great
That's how
putting
he's
in his
trading.
win today because it was $9.08 or something along those lines.
Right.
And it was like $9.
So this week he's trying to get it back by getting the 52 cents, which means he's going to get a full dollar up.
It's so
This
great.
is how
So
he cherry
sharp.
picks us, limping
Guy's
with
so
the Kings.
fucking sharp.
Yeah.
I mean,
How many people are in this contest, Connie?
8.
What place am I in? Yeah.
3rd.
Okay.
Not last.
Yeah.
Not winning.
Slow and steady
Yeah.
wins the
You want-
race.
you want-
I
you want
started
to
with
know?
a $1,000 bankroll and now I have 1,300, but somehow that's not winning.
I mean, you're not winning the competition.
Oh, I see.
I mean, it's a competition. It's
Is-
not
is-
who
is
can
the
get third.
Is the competition over this weekend?
No, but you got to try to win.
shit.
Oh, okay.
Oh, my
I see how it
God.
works.
Guapo's not going to.
Guapo's spicy right
He's just
now.
gonna have to put his whole bankroll on like a 5-team parlay just to catch up, and they're gonna be all minus 400s the last week.
Yeah.
It's gonna be beautiful.
You got it all figured out. Connie.
Listen,
I mean, it's the only
Guapo,
way
you
you
do
can be able
your
to win.
thing and no, I'll be crying at the end.
Well, that's what I'm banking on.
If that's what you guys think, I mean, our boy Platt is not crying at the end. He's crying now. He's been getting absolutely wrecked. He started like pretty much on a pretty hot streak. He had like he was up like 2,500 or something like that. And he had like 3,500 in a row. And it has been all downhill for the man. He is going with Georgia minus 10 against Tennessee. Holy shit. That's going to be an interesting game. He's betting 448 at minus 112. So good luck. Good luck to the Platt. And Hanks. Ooh, Hanks is back with a good one. He was inspired by my pick this week, which I'll get to in a second. But
Hanks had the whole roll unwagered last
He did.
week,
that's
right?
true. Yep.
Yeah.
Hanks
He's
has
right.
Rashad Bateman to score the first touchdown against the Steelers, and Devin A-Chain to score the first touchdown against the Raiders.
Oh, wow. He and I got the A-Chain TD.
He's got. I
It's-
love this.
it's
50.
A-Chan.
A-Chan. It's 50 to win 2,900 or about 3K. So that's pretty dope. I like
Yes.
this one. But me, I went for it.
You didn't put Berkey up there yet.
Oh, what's Berkey's? Oh, Berkey has like a 40-teamer, right?
Berkey has a similar parlay to me. He's got all Steeler stuff, of course.
There you go. Najee, anytime
With a sprinkle
touchdown
of
score.
Yeah, with a sprinkle of.
You said Najee's not playing today, right?
He
Or
didn't
playing this
practice
week?
on when.
Love
He
to
didn't
hear
practice yesterday, but I'm sure he'll be fine.
Love to hear it. Derrick Henry, anytime touchdown score. George Pickens plus 70 yards. Zay Flowers plus 60. And the Steelers minus 3. I actually kind of like it.
You don't hate it, huh? You don't
I
hate
don't
it.
hate it.
Yeah.
I would say the Najee touchdown is probably useless since Russell Wilson just throws moon balls nowadays.
He gets that Najee touchdown, he's going to be cooking.
Yeah, he probably should have took the Pickens touchdown and not the Najee.
Yeah.
I like that one. For me, I'm cooking this week. You know, I have such a lead against you guys that I don't really have to care about anything. Like I'm just gonna.
Who the hell's Jeremy McNicholas?
Exactly. You're about to fucking find out.
He's a commander, right?
He is a commander.
Yeah.
He's the third string running back for the Commanders.
You got the third string running back scoring a touchdown.
I have the third string running back
can you
scoring a
enlighten us on
touchdown
this?
tonight.
Why?
Because Brian Robinson's not.
Oh, they play tonight.
Yeah, he's
shit.
a little banged up and whatever.
He's playing.
And I know. But
So is Eckler.
that's fine. They love giving this guy the ball in the red
They do.
zone.
They
He's a
do.
big motherfucker.
He is.
So I have them, and I don't trust the Rams this week. They got to travel to New England. New England's probably cold, shitty, whatever. You know, I'm taking the Patriots. I think they're about to start cooking. I think they're cooking actually, but I think they're all right. They're not the worst.
Good luck, man.
So I think it's what we like to call easy money.
Good luck, man.
We call it easy money around here, kid. All right, on that note, we are out of here. We will be back on Tuesday. And I will not be here because I will be in Brazil.
Are you practicing your Portuguese?
Yeah.
How do you say thank you?
Hola. Get it poppin', nigga. All right, and on that note, we are out of here. Later, squad.
Peace.
Peace.